So I'll introduce myself. I'm Sarah Ahmed. I'm the executive director of the Parachute Project. I'm really excited to have you all here today. I'd also like to welcome James and Chloe, our panelists, and I'll introduce them in a little bit. We are recording the webinar today. I just want to tell you a little bit about the Parachute Project, and then we're going to have our panelists answer a few questions about career advice, and then we're going to open up the floor for Q&A. So a little bit about me. I first came to the United States as an international student, like many of you all may have. And then I was studying education at Harvard at Graduate School of Education. And then I actually went back to my home country, Egypt, and came back to the United States to pursue my PhD at Columbia in education as well. And now so I have a lot of background in what it means to be an international student that's also made her way to working and finding a career in the United States. The Parachute Project specifically is to help international students who want to pursue a career, even for a little bit in the United States, by connecting them with mentors who are also international in their background or have a lot of acumen in their career to give them that advice on how they can navigate their careers post-graduation. Could you also tell me in the chat if you are an undergraduate student or a graduate student? I would really appreciate that, so I also know who's in the audience. I don't want to be speaking out into the ether here. Thank you. Okay. So what the Parachute Project does also is we pair up students with mentors, and what you do is you're going to log into our platform with your Soka email. And then after you do that, you'll be able to see the mentors, and I'll show you in a little bit what that looks like. And then you'll be able to choose a time with them depending on their background. Yes, I see a few people in the Q&A and I see a few people on the webinar chat, but we'll answer both. I can see both at the moment, and I'd really appreciate it if people gave me their answers. Yeah. So what are the things that you can discuss with your mentor? You can discuss general career advice. You can discuss your resume and your cover letter, interview prep, your LinkedIn, and we'll talk a little bit about this with our mentor panelists today. But you can also have a coffee chat if you just really want to get to know the mentor a little bit better and ask them other questions that we haven't really thought about that pertain to your particular situation or background. Do know that, some of the questions might be better handled by your international student office or your career office at Soka, but we will do our best to share our own experiences. Okay, so the process, like I said, it's very simple. You will log in with your Soka email, go to parachuteproject.org, log in with your Soka.edu email. It's important that it's a Soka.edu email. If you log in with your Gmail account, it's not going to let you in. And then once you're in, you'll be able to see the different mentors. And depending on what the schedule the mentor put up, like the hours that they've set for themselves, that they're free, you can choose a mutual time and book a session with them. And like I said, it could be a general coffee chat, or it could be career exploration, resume, LinkedIn and personal branding, interview prep, or if you're thinking of graduate school applications and that's something not all the mentors will be able to help you with, but they might be if they can. But Mostly it'll be the career exploration, resume, LinkedIn, and interview prep. So this is what it would look like after you log in. You'll be able to see the mentors. There's a little blurb about their background and what their specialty is. And then if you click on them, this is what you're going to see next. You can choose what it is that you want to discuss with them. And then you'll be able to see their calendar and then pick a time. Okay, and these are just some advice for you on that first call. Come ready with questions. It's a 30-minute call, so it's not too long, not too short. You have enough time. And you can always go back to your mentor and book another time if you want to continue the conversation at a later date. After creating a work plan, you can always go back and meet with your mentor. And it's always a good idea to actually schedule recurring meetings. That way you can have more of a relationship with your mentor and work on your goals long term. That's it. It's a very simple process. We are hoping you can visit the parachuteproject.org, sign up after the webinar. Yes, you can talk with different mentors, but you have to book with each one separately. Kind of a first come served right now. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing now, and then we can talk a little bit with James and Chloe, who, oh, sorry about that. James and Chloe. So James is the director of product at River Financial. And Chloe is also in finance as a founder of Mass Invest. And they will give us a little bit about their experience and career advice for students wanting to enter the workforce. My first question, I guess, would be to Chloe and then to James. It's the same question. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your career journey. How did you get into your career? Like, what is it exactly? Because I don't know if I did justice to your introduction. So give me a little bit about yourself and then how you got into your career. And we'll start with Chloe and then James.
Yeah, of course. So hi everyone here. Glad to be here today. Um, I, um, I, well, I'm similar to you. Most of you guys here was also, and still am, was an international student, born and raised in Vietnam. So I'm currently a startup founder working on a fintech startup. I've been doing this for about 3 months. Before that, I was a senior analyst in the CFO office at Compass for 2 years. So that was considered corporate finance, and Compass was a tech-enabled like real estate brokerage platform company based in New York. So I was there for 2 years, and then before that, I started out my first full time job as an investment banking analyst at CIBC, which was a Canadian bulge bracket out of their New York office. So I did that during COVID. So that was pretty intense for about a year, roughly 2 years, about a year and a half. Graduated from NYU, majoring in economics and minoring in math. Um, and then also went to high school here. So I've been, I guess, an international student slash international worker coming up to year 10 now. So I definitely understand the struggles of being one and kind of got my fair share of navigating a career in finance, especially in the city.
Awesome. James, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself and your career trajectory thus far.
Sure, yeah. So I'm not an international student. My mom did the hard part for me. She was a mail order bride from Taiwan. So I'm Taiwanese. My mother was listed in the catalog. My American dad was like, that one. My wife is an international student from Brazil. So I started off my, I guess, college career, if you will, studying biology, pre-med, as a lot of kids are. I'm one of the 95% statistic that decided not to go to medical school. I ended up, being a waiter after I graduated, before I figured out what I wanted to do. Came up with a plan about a year later after I graduated and figured out that I wanted to eventually probably work in tech and work in product at a startup. So I came up with a plan to do that. I went to marketing. I did a bunch of marketing. I still do. I run a consultancy advisory, amongst other things, for advise startups uh, with marketing product problems. But started off in marketing, then transitioned a few years later to working as a data scientist at back in my day called Facebook. You would know today as Meta. And then from there, I switched from data science to product. And then I joined Pinterest before IPO and worked on the same problems at Pinterest I did at Meta, which was working on ads. You'll find that a lot of tech jobs are related to ads. A lot of like free things is because you're the product, they're selling ads to you. And then since then I left a few years back and joined River, which is a Bitcoin startup where we basically power a Bitcoin only brokerage. I lead a team today of 7 folks on my team on product designers, product managers, building, what I think is the future of finance for the United States currently. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So you're like at the intersection of like finance and tech, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Awesome. So how did you get interested in your career, and how did you find the opportunities that you that first got you in? I'm asking this with the perspective, obviously, of like, so what advice would you give somebody who wanted to get into your field? For example, like networking. But I'll leave the floor. I'll try to be quiet and let you guys speak. Anyone can jump in, James or Chloe.
Sure, yeah. So how did I get into what I do? So what I realized is that in college, I learned very, very little that was actually particularly useful for getting a job. You'll find that college, outside of a very small number of degrees, computer science, electrical engineering, usually some sort of engineering thing, and occasionally finance, you actually learn stuff that will get you a job. So I realized that I needed to actually literally go look at a bunch of job listings and understand what skills they're looking for, what qualifications. I realized the degree was pretty much the least important one. A lot of times there's like technical skills they list, like needs to be good at analytics, maybe a little bit of coding skills, needs to understand Google or Facebook ads or something like that. So for my first job, I just looked at, I realized like digital marketing is probably a pretty good foray into analytics, which is an easy way to get into tech. I taught myself how to do Google ads, Facebook ads, that type of stuff. There's tons of free online material. And then landed my first job, just learning about marketing, digital marketing, doing that. And then subsequently after that, I wanted to become a data scientist. So I self-taught using like Khan Academy, Coursera, and other stuff also for free, how to code in SQL, Python, and R. And then then I just started applying for like data analytics jobs at hot startups and big tech companies out in the Bay Area. So what I would say is like I would focus very little on school is the honest answer, unless there's a particular reason why you should. Like you're for example, you want to go to law school, you want to get an MBA, your grades matter. But actually focus more on like learning marketable skills, getting good internships. Yeah. If your first digit of your GPA starts with a 3, you're probably fine.
Okay. Yeah, and I understandably, like some, like you said, law school, or if you're gonna go into graduate school, you do need to pay attention to your like degree. But in the startup space, I keep saying, regardless of whatever degrees anyone pursues, it's important to never stop learning. like whether you go back to school or take courses like James, it's really important to keep your skills always up to date. Now I know Chloe, you got in, you had a experience at
Yeah,
NYU. Why don't
yeah,
you tell us a little bit more?
yeah. I guess my experience with school, with actually getting my first internship or interest in finance, I think it started a little bit further back in time. So I remember as a freshman, I would literally, my first semester at freshman year was literally going to different club meetings just to figure out what's out there. And I really extremely enjoy that. There's something about student clubs that just like brings me a lot of joy. The first semester in freshman, there would be this club fair, the club fair, and I would go there, and then I would put my email down for every single club so I can be on the mailing list, so I can see what type of events, any kind of on-campus or off-campus job opportunities. Um, Freshman year, I knew that I would major in econ and probably do some sort of math. That was because in high school I took AP econ with an amazing teacher. So I was like, yeah, I'm doing that in college. So I got a little of a shortcut there to my decision making. Um, Freshman year, I did a lot of exploration and discovery about what's out there. Know that I would do something analytical. Um, so I ended up going home the summer, freshman year summer, for a consulting advisory internship. I did not enjoy that. I felt like that was just too macro, too high level. Didn't learn anything substantial. I felt like if I was to be if I would be doing that full time, I wouldn't be learning like a hard skill set. So that pivot me to look to something into something else. So um, I did that by elimination, really. And then sophomore year, I came back, and then I studied abroad for one semester, and then the spring semester, I came back to New York, and I was like, okay, it's time to get a job. Um, so um, I apply mostly using on OCR, on campus recruiting, um, to see any jobs. So I applied, fixed my resume, applied there, got a lot of interviews, but nothing caught. And then I got a call back from um, a way, and then got a call back from one of like this fintech startup. So I ended up interning there for one semester while I was in school, unpaid though. So tip here is always get paid. And then after that, I got an offer to join a family office. So that was like my first real finance internship. Definitely learned a lot. I ended up staying there for a year, working between full time in the summer, then part time during the semester. But then I also realized I did not enjoy that as a full time either. Because of their investing approach, it was like a fund of funds investing approach. So they would talk to different fund managers instead of picking individual stocks and learning about each company. So I wanted to get that deep dive hard skill into like how can I analyze a company? Like what is a company? Um, like what are the things I need to know to like value this company, know that it's going to do well or do bad, things like that. And then I hard launch, and then after that I hard launch myself into the investment banking recruiting process, which is notoriously hard. And then and that's another story, but I ended up getting an offer, and that's kind of led me to my first real like full-time job, and then exit that, and then exit that too, and then kind of here I am right now. So I would say that taking a step back, um, if I were a student, I would explore the school resources, starting with clubs. Is really a numbers game. So put your application out there, and then something will catch.
That's really good advice to join clubs. And James was mentioning like networking. Basically, both of you have experience in putting yourself out there and finding opportunities and networking. Um, whether it's on-campus clubs or gaining the skill set. So how would you say, like, in-person networking, or did you also like apply through LinkedIn? What was your approach?
Yeah, so I didn't really, to be honest, actually really didn't do a whole lot of networking. I just
Okay.
treated finding a job like a full-time job. I would send out 100 to 200 applications every single day for like 3 months, just nonstop. And I would also like, I had like 20 different resumes. Each one is like specifically tailored to every single role I'm applying to. And I always write an introduction, and of course, I'm exactly interested in the role I'm applying to in my introduction. Um, Even if I'm not, right? Like just but so my case is more just like boots on the ground, um, firing off as many uh applications as I could. As a hiring manager, I would say that when I have a list of role today, I get 2 to 3 thousand applicants. So a lot of times it is a number game. It's a huge numbers game. Um, Unsolicited, but one big thing is I interview a lot of international students. I do some hiring for, we'll do some H-1B sponsorships, especially for the product engineering design roles. And a big thing is if you're not an engineering role, like you just really need to have good English skills. There's a lot of international students that I talk to, and it's just a hard stop because their English isn't good enough. And it's a communication-based role, and it's like it's just if it's not good enough, like sorry, you don't have the job. So that's one of the things that like you just have to be good at. So not only like you guys taking classes, you make sure that your English is as good as possible as well.
That's a good point. So language skills you need to work on. So what would you say are the important skills, like generically and then specifically in your field, that you think international students or any student needs to focus on? Because you mentioned language skills was important, especially in communication roles.
Yeah. So the honest answer is that you need to be looking for jobs that are hard to find, for or like basically like high paying jobs is one of them, and hard to find domestically, because the answer is most people don't want the hassle of dealing with sponsorships. When they're running internships, they're looking to do return offers. So large companies like big tech companies totally willing to do sponsorships. Usually, like the person who's getting paid the least is making six figures still at a big tech company. So optimizing a lot of times for like large companies that are willing to do sponsorships, applying for roles that are paying a lot. Well, subsequently, you also need to like learn the skill sets for that. So, in closed case in investment banking, super high salaries, super willing to do sponsorships. So if your goal is to eventually immigrate to America, you really need to optimize for that. Like you can't get like the typical or average job that an American graduate would get. You have to aim higher. You have to uh because like the cost of sponsorship and the amount of time it takes, companies are only willing to do that for like these I would say like more elite roles, if you will, whether or not that's engineering or investment banking or design, or product management, something like that. It's it's definitely not it's not easy, and but yeah, you definitely have your work cut out compared to you just like an average American who could just get any run in the mill job straight out of college.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So I'll speak a little bit to that. I know that international students have sort of their unique challenges in that you come as an international student on an F1 visa or a J1 visa. And then after that, you have OPT, which is very critical to use smartly. I don't know, Chloe, do you have experience using OPT time or?
Yeah, I have experience using everything. um, right. So I came. So F1 for 4 years, and then 1 year of OPT, and then it was on STEM OPT for like a few months, and then I transitioned to H1B. So I guess yeah. So that's I kind of checked done every single possible numbers and letters as an
Yeah.
international student there. In terms of skill, I guess I would agree wholeheartedly with James is that communication skills is really important. Not that your English has to be good. I think that most of the students here, if you're able to get into a really good university in America like Soka, and you probably be able to speak the language, like English really well. But I think I would like to highlight that being able to tell your story convincingly is equally important. In a sea of like thousands of resume, I think it's really hard for you to make a connection with the recruiter. So the one way to stand out is that if you're able to get an interview, be sure to know your story well. Um, Whether your story is like, oh, you were born and raised in outside the U.S., the reason why you came to the U.S., what did you do during school, what are your interests, um, what you like to do next. Really be able to convey that compassionately, to be able to make a human connection to the recruiter. I think that's really key that a lot of people forget, because at the end of the day, even though a job is two people working together in whatever flat hierarchy or vertical hierarchy. It's like you need to have a connection with them. So if you're able to do that, I think that's half the battle.
That's
And then
yeah.
yeah, and then I guess like in terms of recruiting as an international student, um, your options are, I wouldn't say limited, but it's definitely a battle. If you zoom out, if there are two pipelines ways to get a job. You either go into this massive pool of talent competing for the best job, whether it's big tech, big law, um, big high finance. It's a traditional path. You'll be able to get sponsorship. You'll be able to get a high salary, um, but you will have to work really hard. So that's option number one. And then option number two is find your niche with a startup, like a fledgling startup that is fundraising or well backed by a VC, or a small company. But for option two, I would say that um, the challenges, not the challenges, but you have to find someone who advocates for you at the table, someone who would say, I will sponsor you, um, I vouch for you. So that way, if that company, that small company, that startup doesn't have an established policy around sponsorship, then that person will make it happen for you as a first case. So those are really your two options. But those are a lot of options to have, because there are a lot of good startups and a lot of big companies that willing to hire good talent like you in the US.
Yeah, thank you for that. Those are really good insights to make a connection with a recruiter, but then also distinguish yourself, like James was saying, to put yourself in a position where you're highly skilled and you're competitive compared to the general pool of talent, and to use your time wisely. This is my sort of input here, is to use your time wisely right out during school time and during your OPT time to learn those skills, make those connections, and work on your resume. I like how James was talking about his resume, like making it specific to the job application and then sending out those 200, um, 200, but those were more, I feel like that's more of a cold approach. I feel like Chloe was advocating a sort of more warm approach with the recruiters. So those are two different ways that you can find opportunities. For me, I did a little bit of what James did. I did a little bit of what Chloe did. So I know how, and sometimes it really is a numbers game. So you mentioned you get like 3,000 resumes. So how do you pick?
Um, sure, I'll be really direct.
Yeah.
I pick in that I look to see if they went to so I'll give you an example. I recently hired a product manager. I'm paying $130,000 a year. I don't care if the person's straight out of college. Um, and I'll be blunt. I look at, did they get a full scholarship to the school they went to, or did they go to a top 20 school, and did they study something hard? So if they didn't go to like a top 20 school and they didn't get a full, or they didn't get a full scholarship to a lesser school, or they didn't study something difficult like math, philosophy, computer science, electrical engineering, physics, something that's like very, very tough and challenging, I just didn't consider them. Because I can't possibly talk to 3,000 people. So that was the top filter. Also, I looked at every single resume though, and I looked at everyone's like, I can't talk to everybody, but I looked at every single, like, I literally manually looked at every resume. Personal websites stood out. Some people had really excellent personal websites with portfolios of their work, whether or not that was like really cool papers they've written on philosophy or international relations or something like that. Like examples of some of the, like graphics or art or just things that they've done. It humanizes you. It makes you more than just like the resume on the paper. But a lot of it's just like elite signal. I'll be blunt. If you're straight in college, if you have like excellent test scores or something like that, you could like list it as well. Like I had a 1600 on my SAT or something like that. Because the answer is like when there's 3,000 people applying, it's just how do you filter, right? So that's just the blunt answer of it all. It's just like elite filtering, and then is there something this person doing that is like really makes them stand out? Whether or not it's like some people had like amazingly beautiful, well-crafted personal websites. Super high effort, I know, but you really do have to stand out. Especially I'm hiring in tech. There's a lot of people that want a job in tech, and with like recent layoffs and stuff, it's been very ultra competitive.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So it's about making yourself as unique as possible in the eyes of a recruiter who has a few minutes, if not seconds, to look at your resume or your personal website. I'm just gonna check the Q&A real quick. So there's a question on how to use the parachute project and mentors. So go on the website, and my advice is to book the first session with a mentor that you feel like you might connect with. And then after that first session, if it's a good fit, to go back and book a couple more sessions and utilize that first session in outlining what it is that you really want to work on and for your career. Do you actually want advice for your resume? Are you just actually trying to figure out if you want to get into this career? You might just be, that might even be before, like you're not really sure you want to get into finance. Speak to Chloe. She'll tell you what it's like to actually be in the finance field. If you already know, or if you've already had an internship and you know that you're in this field, then you have more specific goals to work on. Come with those goals and come to the session with those goals. And then you only have that half an hour, but you can always book more sessions with the mentor if it works out that first time. I hope that answers the question. Yeah. So speaking of mentorship, have you two had mentors that have helped you on your journey and or help? Like what made a difference to you and your journey in your career? Is there a special mentor or special resource that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think in answer this one, I did have a mentor when I was recruiting for investment banking. And I think that was one of the main reason why I think I got the offer. Without the mentor, I don't think I would have been able to really grind through the whole process because that was pretty grueling. So I started working with him, and I guess I knew him through a mutual connection. He was a principal at a hedge fund, same background as me, also Vietnamese in America. Started out as an investment banking and then exit after 2 years. I talked to him first time and it was a great fit. And the fit here was like I was looking for someone determined, but also um, knows what he's doing and also a good teacher. I think the teaching part is really important because there are a lot of talented, high ranking people out there, but mentoring, it's like you have, like, he would be teaching me how to prep my resume or like answer interview questions or um, um, teaching me how to model a company on Excel. So having him was really important. So I did that was literally meeting this person for like 5 hours a week, every week for like 3 months. So that was pretty intense. Um, but um, but yeah, having him was important. Um, but yeah, and then I think after that, I got the return offer. Then I didn't have a mentor. But then when I was at campus, I did have a mentor. Um, I got the job by myself on my own, but at the company, I had a mentor that was my old boss. So that was also the reason why I actually really enjoy my job. So I guess I had mentors while trying to get a job and also while at a job.
That's great. Yes, we all need our mentors. For me, it was also like faculty mentors sometimes, or um, like you can also make use of people within your small community. And we're hoping in the Parachute Project that we can be that resource for people um, um, to help them. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that like even if you're trying to get a mentor but not there yet or haven't found someone, I guess mentorship can also comes from upperclassmen. I had a lot of when I was in as a freshman and sophomore year, I did this mentor mentee matching program through a club at NYU, and I talked to seniors and juniors who are like interning at these banks, and they was able to help me out a lot. Some of them was like, yeah, don't go into finance. Some of them was like, yeah, please go into finance. So they give really honest advice without the filter, because I feel like they would be, in school and on the same boat as you. So mentors doesn't have to be full-time professionals, but can also be just 1 or 2 years older than you.
Yeah, that's true. Alumni down the road, faculty mentors, and then and platforms like the Parachute Project. Um, so I want to be mindful of our time. We're almost out of time. So I want to see if any of our participants have questions or if anyone would like to ask anything else. We have one more question over here. Does attending a liberal arts school lessen my chance of being chosen for opportunities? If I highlight philosophy in my resume, would that help? Would anyone like to take that? I could answer it, but
Sure. So the answer is depends what type of job you're applying for. Uh, so I don't know what type of job you're applying for, so it's all relative. Um, uh, so the answer like it really depends, but most of my career is in tech, right? So the answer is I would have for you if you're trying to get a career in tech, the answer is full stop, yes. You don't have a chance in big tech. Um, like big tech recruits out of certain schools. And if you don't go to one of those schools, it's very difficult unless you're like really extraordinary. Because usually they have like deals or agreements with schools, have like kind of like direct recruit pipelines, things like that. Right. So like you're in tech, it's almost a deal breaker, right? But like if it's not in tech, and you're looking to go into investment banking or something else like that, like different, there's less like a big deal about it, right? For example, investment banking, famously, it's like you just go to a top school, liberal arts or whatever, otherwise doesn't really matter. They don't care what you studied at all. They're just looking for smart people. They'll teach you investment banking on the job as an analyst. One of the people I hired from my team, she studied international relations and philosophy, and her first job out of college was an investment banking analyst at Barclays, right? So the answer is like it really depends on what career field you're looking to get into. But what I definitely do recommend is you have like a strategy of like you're targeting these jobs. So sorry, not it doesn't I don't know if that directly answers your question, but it's kind of like more, it depends.
Yeah, I would say the same. Like it depends. Like my graduate degrees were all in education, so it is kind of a liberal arts humanities. But I think like James was saying earlier, it's not just your degree. You have to get an education, like whether it's on Khan Academy or something online. You do have to continually build your skill set and demonstrate those skills for the job that you apply for. And there, sometimes it's not a direct line. It's not like you're going to graduate, you're going to be straight into the field that you want to go into. It might be that you take a couple of years um, working at a startup, gaining those skills while you work, and then apply to something else. Um,
Totally.
yeah.
One thing that Chloe said that was interesting to me was, do you want to do finance or not? There's actually another question you have to ask is like, are you really just trying to immigrate to the United States or not? Because it could be that you hate engineering and you hate math and you hate tech or whatever, but the reality is the vast majority of the H-1Bs are given to tech companies because they're the ones who are willing to do the sponsorship, or high finance, right? Like investment banking, management consulting, that type of stuff. And there's a lot of large companies that do a ton of sponsorship for like finance, management consulting, big tech, that type of stuff. So if you kind of optimize for that and like guaranteeing immigration, guaranteeing someone the path to sponsorship to an H-1B, um, that's something I'd recommend doing if you're like really optimizing for like the best chance of securing immigration status to the United States, if that's what you're looking to do. And then you can always change later, right? Like I started off my career in marketing and I switched to data analytics, but the whole time I knew I actually wanted to be a product manager. I just knew it's very difficult because I didn't personally go to like a very elite school. I didn't study engineering or something like that. I realized when I'm graduating, oh wait, I actually want to do this. So I had to go through a very different path than like this straight out of college path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you have a lot of opportunities now that you didn't have like 20 years ago because sometimes your parents are going to give you advice that it like there's supposed to be a straight path. I think we're in a time where there isn't that direct path laid out for people. You have to hustle and you have to find those different opportunities, and it's likely that people will change careers multiple times. But like James said, James, if for international, if you're not an international student, then it might just be about career advice. And I do want to highlight that the Parachute Project, we're not, it could, you could come on to the platform if you're not an international student. We're not, but we do feel like we're hoping to help international students, given that a lot of us have international experience. Like we're better prepared for helping that category of people, but feel free to come on if you're not an international student. But just to highlight, again, it goes back to this OPT and immigration laws and all that. And some of that is not anyone's, it's just the immigration policy of the United States right now. They do give, say, more OPT time if you have a STEM background than if you don't. And so you actually have less time to figure things out if you're a philosophy major than if you're, say, a computer science engineer or something like that, and you know that you're getting into tech straight away. And so you might be under actually more pressure if you're trying to stay in the United States for work if you're not in STEM. But it's not impossible. If you can demonstrate that you're highly skilled in your field, you can still find a job in the career that you want to pursue.
Yeah, definitely not impossible. Wasn't trying to paint it out to be. It's just more of like, personally for me, I optimize for what's the highest probability for success, and then guarantee what I need to get done, and then switch, right? So I did the very boring thing if I worked at Fang for a very long time because it's guaranteed high income, and then I actually don't enjoy doing any of that. Then I quit after I save a bunch of money, and then I can like gamble and work at VC-backed small startups and things like that. Cool. There's one last question that I thought was pretty interesting. Do any LinkedIn course certificates really help candidates? The answer is, like I said, it depends. If it's a technical skill, it's very, very hard. To be blunt, one of the reasons why all these tech companies recruit and sponsor H-1Bs is when I worked at Facebook, 2/3 of the engineers were from Asia and were H-1B. I swear on God, it's maybe more than 2/3. Americans really don't like studying tough technical things. So I just list it on my resumes, and every single company I applied to at least interviewed me and would do a skills assessment. So I just listed, I knew Python, SQL, R, or whatever, some sort of coding. It doesn't matter if you don't go to elite school, they'll just test you. They'll literally give you a very, very hardcore quiz where they're like testing out your coding skills, that type of stuff, at least from a tech perspective. Investment banking is also super hard. It's basically like they give you a bunch of honestly, investment banking just gives you a bunch of IQ tests and stuff like that, and puzzles and amongst other like projects. Investment banking is a crazy interview path, even crazier than tech. And so they I would say they help you if you actually learn the skill is what I would say it. Yeah. Sarah, I think Sampei wanted me to throw out that if you do want to book time with Chloe or I or any other mentor, you can do that through the Parachute Project website.
Yes, we are almost out of time. Thank you for throwing that out, James. And thank you. I want to thank James and Chloe for joining us today. Your insight has been invaluable. And I really enjoyed talking to you and getting to know your unique experiences. James and Chloe are two of our mentors. And we have more mentors on the platform. So please make sure to sign up. And we look forward to seeing you all on the platform. We've answered most of the questions. And if you do have any more questions, please feel free to email me. I'm sarah@parachuteproject.org. I don't promise I'll be able to answer everything, especially if it's legal advice. But please do fill out also the post session survey. This is very important for us. Gets to help us know where what we did well, what we can do better next time, and what you want from the Parachute Project. So thank you all for attending. Thank you, James. Thank you, Chloe, so much.
Thank you for hosting, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully, yeah, thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thank you.
Yeah, we hope to see you all on the parachuteproject.org. Please sign up. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.